All right, and we are live. We are live. Just waiting for it to connect to Instagram. Right now, we'll go live there as well. For the first couple minutes, I'm going to finish putting together some slides that I want to share with everyone today. Chris had to get cereal, but he is ready now.
Yep.
Completely ready. It says that we're live. Let me double check and make sure that this is working here. Okay. Streaming. I don't know why it was saying Facebook was offline, so I don't think anyone was seeing anything there for a moment.
You
And
forgot to put it on a different view again.
what's that?
So if you wanted to put it on the different view, you had to do it before going live. Remember?
Different view. Oh, for portrait view.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. We don't need to. No worries there. All right, now we can go live. Now it's letting us go live on Instagram. All right, I'm gonna move that one over here so I can check on comments. We are back for office hours. Can you shoot a message to the team just in case anyone wants to hop on? And then I'm going to add another scene here real fast. You're going to see this live for a second. And we're going to be talking about the types of emails that Tugboat users send to their adjusters, how we help them word those strategically to ensure that they sound professional, personable, that they're set up for success with those. So that's what I'm adding to the slides right now, actually, is a couple examples of the types of emails that are some real ones that we actually help people put together this last week. So shrink that down just a little bit here. All right. There's that. I'm going to duplicate, actually, and duplicate. I'll replace this one with a different one. Perfect. And then on this one, I'm going to replace it with the third one that we're going to look at today. This was pretty simple. Okay. And we'll go back to the home. We've got one viewer right now. Usually we just have a few people drop in while we're live. Let me double check and see if we've had any incoming questions over the last little bit. It's crazy. I think part of it's because office hours on Wednesday, which is right obviously in the middle of the week, that it always jumps up before I feel like I have time to go out and check or like solicit some questions from people, like and figure out what people are wanting to talk about most, because Monday's always crazy. Tuesday we're getting in the flow of things, and then on Wednesday it's office hours again, and then Thursday, Friday is a bit of a sprint typically. Let me see a couple new comments on some posts I might be able to pull up. Let me see.
All right.
Jump in there. Who else is here? Danielle is here. Love having Danielle join us. All right. We'll be jumping into it here in just a minute or two, and a couple of topics that we're going through and covering that. Can you hear it, Danielle? You can't hear anything?
I asked you. I mean, how are you shaking your head no if you can't hear?
She's your lip reader. Oh, I also, my microphone is far away.
I mean,
closer. Is that better now? Can you hear me better now? I also realize I can switch to my better camera.
Can you hear me, Danielle? Can anybody hear me? Now I can't hear you, Cameron. No volume.
You should be able to hear me now. How about that?
Now I got
There
you.
we go. That's better.
Danielle, do you have either of us?
All right. Danielle can't hear either of us. That's not good. Can you double check, Chris, that people can hear us on the Facebook page? Let me see on Instagram.
I think she's reloading right now. Instagram. Well, people would have to be watching for them to be hearing. So, wait, there's 2 people on Facebook. Yeah.
Yep.
Emily says she can hear.
Oh, perfect.
Everyone but Danielle.
Everyone but Danielle. Emily, good to have you here again. She's our repeater. Tugboat user. Great questions every week. Always appreciate the questions that you're bringing. All right. Danielle says she can hear now. She switched her laptop. Let's get her back in here. Better? Oh, but we can't hear you.
Are you muted?
You got to turn.
I am muted. Sorry.
You can stay muted if you want to. That's not a big deal.
I keep switching offices every week in hopes that one day I'll find one as fun as Danielle's. But
yeah,
week,
exactly. You just
Mine is it's Noah's Ark.
She's at a WeWork for children.
No, this room was painted like this like 20 years ago, so I don't want to change it.
I get that. The ceiling in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, which is actually where Chris is.
I know. I was staying there the past few days, and I was like, "Wow, this ceiling has been like this forever."
Yeah, it's my grandma painted it like the night sky, and it's just been like that forever. Hey, look, there's my mom back there.
Hi,
mom, you're live, and Maya's on here too.
Hi, y'all.
Hi.
We're missing project stuff.
All right.
It's my life.
Yeah, this is when you're a nomad working across states. You don't get to have a solid office. All right, I'm gonna jump into a couple things here in just a moment. Danielle, maybe something to have primed if you have any if you don't have any other things that you want to go over, but you've been doing a lot of Tugboat support over the last couple weeks as well. If there's any meaningful interactions that you've had on there or problems that you've had to help people solve and get through, then maybe write down some notes or just be prepared to talk through that a little bit. I found that talking through those items has been one of the things that people interact with a little bit more. Rachel, let us know if you want to jump on the video. Good to have you here as well. She does. Oh man, it's gonna be a party. I love when everyone shows up. Perfect. Rachel's here too.
Me and Emily. Oh, 4 times. 4 times.
I know. Emily gets gold star for attendance. She gave it to herself.
Yeah.
But she gets to keep it.
I concur.
All right. So Rachel, I actually am using a couple of an email that you helped someone prepare in Tugboat as an example today of the types of emails that we help people put together.
Cool.
Just to talk through the style of conversation and messages that are pretty common and ones that I think that anybody could benefit from while they're working through their own claim, whether or not they're even using Tugboat. Real fast, I'm going to throw a message to everyone through Slack. There is someone that right as I signed on sent a message or a comment via Facebook saying that they were having some trouble with something. So I'm going to drop that into Tugboat's general. So if you want to send a note to Naomi for that one, Rachel, that might be good. All right. Well, let's get into it. It's now 3:10. We've been doing nothing for 10 minutes. If you are watching live, we are so glad to have you. This is Tugboat's office hours. Again, you're here. My name is Cameron. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Tugboat. We also have Chris. He is the general manager of Waypoint Adjusting, which is Tugboat's subsidiary. It's a public adjusting firm that operates primarily in Southern California. Danielle and Rachel, both adjusters. Danielle is a licensed public adjuster. Rachel is a licensed independent adjuster. And both of them support Tugboat users as well, meaning that they help people come up with the tools that they're going to use negotiating their claims. And so part of what I want to talk about today is I'll start here in just a second, just kind of talking through what Tugboat is and what it isn't. And this is important. I think we've gotten several messages over the last couple weeks from attorneys, from people that are just curious, just asking about what Tugboat is and what it's doing, which is not surprising. Tugboat is the first claim support service doing the type of support that we're doing. And so it doesn't fit in any kind of preconceived categories for people, and that's fine. So I think it's important for us to re-educate people whenever we have the opportunity. So quickly, Tugboat's an online claim support service that helps people negotiate and navigate their own insurance claims, specifically their property claims. And so you can think of it a little bit like TurboTax or LegalZoom for their insurance claim. Mom, are you dropping in here to be part of the conversation?
She said no.
Oh, too bad. Anyways, it's like TurboTax or LegalZoom for someone's insurance claim, right? I even did an experiment earlier just asking ChatGPT, like, what's the difference between LegalZoom and an attorney? And it aligns really well with how I would define the difference between what we are as Tugboat and a public adjuster, right? The attorney equivalent within claims, or an attorney, and what happens there. And so it's really important for people to understand that Tugboat is actually, I'm going to see if I can make my screen a little bit larger for this portion, just in case we're recording it. I've always want to make it to where it automatically makes whoever's talking like the larger screen on here, because it works better for when we record it. But anyways, Tugboat is not an attorney. It's not a public adjuster. It's not negotiating your claim for you. We're not talking to your insurance adjuster. We're not even telling you what you have to do with your claim. We're simply trying to provide you tools and education that allow you to make more empowered decisions for your own claim that you can use or you cannot use. And so that you don't have to navigate the complex, scary, difficult, challenging process of an insurance claim, just wondering what you should do next. I know that Rachel, for instance, has had dozens and dozens of meetings with people over the last week, a week or two. And I was asking today about with Aaron, our head of operations, just kind of what's the common themes that he's hearing from you guys in that. And it's just, he said it's just that people want to talk to someone that understands what's going on, right? They just want to know that when they send a message or when they talk to someone, that someone understands what's going on. So anyways, that's what Tugboat is. And I want to show you, though, specifically the types of tools that we are primarily helping people do. So if I was going to say the primary function that Tugboat does is someone will upload something to us. That could be a letter from their insurance company. It could be just an update about their claim that they write. And sometimes the question is, what can I do next? Or what does this mean? And so we will answer that to the best of our ability, always directing them to other tools and professionals that they can talk to get more official answers. And so letting them know when it's appropriate to talk to a public adjuster, that they can talk to one, to talk to an attorney if their question's a legal one. But if it's a lot of times the confusion is just in the jargon that's being used by your adjuster or how it relates to a previous letter that they sent you. And so what we're doing oftentimes is someone sends us, hey, I just got this update from my adjuster. What can I do next? Because I don't agree that I should have to move out of my housing that I'm in right now. Or I don't agree that they shouldn't pay for my damaged belongings. And we essentially give them ways that they can address that. And so I actually took one email, Rachel, that you, oh, wow, it maximized you all the way there. Rachel, I took one email, Rachel, that you had helped a user put together. And these are through automated tools in our backend, but yet you had helped a user put together. And I split it into 3 different emails because you covered 3 different topics in one. And so I'll let you talk through some of these, Rachel. I don't even know if you'll remember what the user is. You don't even know which ones these are.
No problem.
But I'm going to pull these up right now. because these are the common types of messages that we're helping people to write. And this is the way that we're helping them primarily to communicate with their adjusters. And so for this one, this is to do with additional living expenses. I'm just going to read it and then we can talk about it. So hi, Mark. Mark is in this instance, the adjuster. Thank you for your response dated February 25th, 2025 and the status letter from March 5th. We appreciate the continued ALE coverage while the claim investigation is ongoing. Your letter states that ALE will continue until cleaning is deemed complete. To ensure we are aligned on expectations, can you provide written confirmation of the exact conditions that must be met before ALE coverage is discontinued? So Rachel, in this instance, what is this property owner trying to communicate or establish with their adjuster? What are they trying to do?
So habitability is a word that a lot of people use, the jargon you were talking about. Adjusters like to say your home has been determined to be habitable, meaning you can move back in. And the biggest thing right now with this, I know what this claim is from. They're having confusion. The adjuster is kind of confused and has relayed confusing information to the Tugboat user about habitability. And they just want to make sure that before their house, this is a smoke claim. They want to make sure that they're not going to be forced back into their home until their home is safe and habitable.
Yeah.
That's all. Just, we want confirmation. We want written confirmation just to make sure that we're not going to be forced back in before it's done.
Yep. This is the same type of thing. If Danielle, you do a lot of work still as a public adjuster, Chris, you do as well. Is this the same type of thing that you're doing as a public adjuster on someone's behalf? Right? Are these the same type of messages? Is there anything different essentially here?
No, actually ALE is probably one of the biggest issues with these smoke damage claims, and getting extensions that are reasonable, not like 1 week or 2 weeks at a time. I have a claim that an adjuster hasn't even provided an estimate or payment for cleaning to the home. And he's like, oh, they should be able to get back home in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, what? Like, that's just ridiculous. As far as the wording goes, yeah, I mean, I'd probably throw a little bit more like insurance and policy language into it. Just depends on the situation. But I think this is great, especially for Tugboat users, that you're basically requesting the insurance company to tell you what their conditions are for, what conditions must be met before they can move back home. And that will kind of open the door for a lot of other, conversations.
Yep. Yeah. You mentioned
you'll ever get them to tell you the conditions. Have you ever got a response to that where they actually tell you the conditions? Anything else?
I mean, yeah, I'm not sure on this specific one, but I feel like, it's more often than not that they're not like, this is across most of the questions that you ask your adjuster. Most of the questions that you're going to send aren't actually going to get answered.
Yeah.
Right. But you're establishing something.
Yeah. And if they can't provide an answer, then I would suggest responding with what the, California Department of Insurance states or is saying is, considered habitable.
Yeah. Yeah. Danielle, you mentioned that as a public adjuster, you're often including more policy language or maybe Department of Insurance regulations, like insurance jargon back at the adjuster, essentially.
Absolutely.
There have been times, and a lot of times, again, Tugboat is, in a sense, this self-guided service, right? And so there are times where the user will essentially, the users might request a different tone, or can you help me find regulations that are related to this? And in those instances, yeah, we want people to communicate in the voice that they want to communicate in, right? And generally, though, someone is emailing their adjuster as a layperson that isn't an insurance expert, right? And so it's not often Tugboat's job to make them suddenly sound like they're smarter than their adjuster. It's just to help them navigate what's happening right there. And I think we've learned at Tugboat that when you step too far in that direction, it actually can be like counterproductive, right? The adjuster stops seeing them as this person that they can help and starts seeing it as a challenge in a way.
Yeah, and a lot of times adjusters, not all adjusters, but some adjusters don't even know what the California Department of Insurance is putting out on a regular basis, or what does the policy language, like if you policy is always usually up to interpretation, right?
Yeah.
So an adjuster can interpret it a different way than you or I or Chris or Rachel or a user. So it's all, kind of trying to get everybody on the same page of what the understanding is.
Of course. Let's, Emily has a question for us, our faithful attendee. I'm going to pull that up right now before we jump into the next one. Question, are insurance carriers heavily encouraging homeowners in the burn area with undamaged houses to start/finish remediation while debris removal is happening? We're not quite there yet. Insurance and contractor have to negotiate the estimate. Have to negotiate on the estimate. Okay, that's the end of it. So she's saying, like, she's thinking preemptively, right? Are people being asked to move back in the moment that this cleaning is done? Rachel, you'll know better than me. You do more of the Tugboat support. What is that looking like in the burn areas?
So yeah, they're saying it's some carriers, not all of them. Like some of them have went ahead and approved a years-long lease.
Yep.
But that is not all of them. Mm-hmm. In fact, there is one that we helped, and she didn't ask for this help, which is really weird. She's already back.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
In the burn area?
In the burn area. And I have to look and see who this is, but she didn't ask for that help. So I didn't, I did what she asked. I mean,
Yep.
Anyway, so I have to try to remember who that was and maybe check to see if she's still there, because I think most of them are really slowing down on that forced reentry.
Most carriers are, I think, not pushing as hard as they were. Some of them. But there are plenty where I feel like I still hear every week someone saying that, my adjuster said that I should be able to be back there within 2 weeks of the cleaning starting, right? Yeah. That's like this common phrase that's getting thrown around pretty often there. And again, this is to review what we looked at last week. When we're talking about the burn area, this is the video I showed last week. Every house that's red in here is a total loss in this video. This is in Altadena. Every house that's black or green is still standing. And so the black and green ones are the ones that we're talking about. So imagine that's your house. You're right in the middle of, you're this one up here to the left. You're right in the middle of a bunch of houses that burned, and you being asked to move back any point before all that debris removal is done around your property would seem really unreasonable to me, right? And it is still being asked. I think it is one of the main points of disconnect. Emily, I appreciate you bringing it up again, because I just think it's so important to keep coming back to what houses we're talking about when we're talking about these smoke damaged properties, right? It's the ones in the burn area that we're mostly talking about and just around it. And there are pockets. I'm going to let this video keep going. Okay, right here. Let me go right. There are pockets where there's a handful of houses altogether that didn't burn down. Right here on the bottom left, these houses that are in black there, those are still standing. But again, they're still in a neighborhood where there's going to be hazardous debris removal happening for the rest of the year. And I think at minimum, it's already going to be so hard for people to move back in while construction is happening in this neighborhood for the next 2 to 3 years nonstop, right? They're going to hear trucks coming back and forth. They're going to hear beeping, and it is not going to be a pleasant place to live even after debris removal is done. But I do think people will have a hard time arguing that they shouldn't have to move back because it's a construction zone, but making the move back before that difficult process, I think is completely unreasonable. So Emily, thanks for the question again. I'm going to jump into the second. Oh yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
I want to add one thing. There is one carrier that one user that I'm helping her insurance company is not even paying for remediation until after debris removal is complete. They are doubling down. They're saying we're with you.
Yep.
And
What carrier is that?
can I say
Yeah, say it.
Bamboo?
Bam! Wow. Wow.
Hallelujah. A
God,
win
that's
for good.
crazy.
We put a bunch of documentation together, presented it, and they met with management and said, the user had already laid a lot of the groundwork in their voice to voice conversations. But yeah,
So they're
they're
saying that they'll continue ALE coverage as long as they have
committed,
it's not exhausted.
committed, and in writing. I've seen
Wow.
the email. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's something. I mean, more to the point of what Emily's question was, is that our carrier is forcing people to do the stuff before stuff is finished, and the answer, like, we don't know. It's so different each time. So yes, they are more than often than I think than not. They are expecting people to have things clean before they probably should have them clean.
Right.
And generally, I mean, in Hawaii, we had one where they were talking about cleaning it and then wrapping the house in plastic, and whether or not they wanted to fit the money to wrap the house in plastic, while they wanted to clean it, keep the people out of it, but clean it first and then wrap it in plastic, and then be like, we're not going to pay for anything that happens after we wrap it in plastic. It was like, it's so crazy. Yeah. So generally their carriers, I think, are wanting it cleaned faster than not. And then I haven't seen really what the fights look like when you go back 8 months later and be like, we have to have our house cleaned again. I haven't seen that fight. Yeah.
I actually really appreciate it. I remember that one, Chris, when we were helping people in Maui.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate when carriers get creative and try to find a solution, right? Like, that's a good sign. If your adjuster's like, hey, we want to clean it now, but we want to pay it's so expensive to wrap a house in plastic and seems crazy, and may cause its own issues, right? Wrapping your house in plastic in the heat of Lahaina, where it gets like 100 and something degrees, like who knows what might happen there. But I appreciate when an adjuster's like, hey, let's figure out a way that makes sense for all of us for this to happen here. I just want to take a second before we jump into that email. Because I may use this little bit of I want to use this portion of this as a video later potentially. But so, Rachel, you were just saying that there is one carrier that has committed to allow the homeowner that their house is still standing, right? It would be called smoke damaged by most carriers, right?
Or undamaged. Like
or undamaged. Yeah, they might call it undamaged. And so most insurance companies, nearly all of them have said, go clean your house as fast as possible. Go clean it, right? Here's an estimate for cleaning it. Go clean it and then move back into it as soon as you can, right? And then maybe some became more flexible and said, well, we'll let you wait a little while to move back in. We won't rush you back in. Exactly. Right? But really, the requests that a lot of homeowners have been making, and Tugboat has helped people to put these requests together, is essentially, can I wait until debris removal, phase two of debris removal is done in my neighborhood, so there's no more hazardous debris removal happening around my property? And there's been mixed results on that, right? But even that has its own problems. If you decontaminate everything now, and debris removal happens for the next 8 months to a year all around your property, is the adjuster going to agree to then decontaminate your house again because of all that dust and asbestos and lead and hazardous materials that have been going around in the neighborhood again? And that's going to be a hard sell, right? And so ideally, what someone would be able to get approved is, hey, I don't have to go try to decontaminate my house right now. Or maybe there would be like a light HEPA vacuum that gets the surface areas cleaned, right? Get the contents out of the house. But we know that this house is going to be recontaminated until the neighborhood is thoroughly cleaned up.
Right.
And so there's one insurance company, I just want to repeat this, there's one insurance company that has agreed that the family can wait to do the remediation, the decontamination work, until after phase 2 debris removal is done in their neighborhood. And that insurance company is Bamboo, which that's honestly a surprise to me. Like, we've had experiences supporting people through bamboo claims before and have had mixed experiences, right? But I certainly want to give credit where it's due. And if an insurance company is alleviating their policyholders' stress by that much, that's a huge, huge stress relief, right? It's the biggest thing that all these people are talking to us about is, am I going to have to move back into my house before it's safe? And for them to come out and say, no, you're not going to have to do that. That's amazing. So thank you, Bamboo. Appreciate you being committed to your policyholders. You are one of the only, if not one of just the few that are doing that. And so we really appreciate it. Your policyholders appreciate it. And we will make sure we remember that as we talk with people about what their policies look like moving forward. So anyways, wanted to make sure we got that. All right. I'm going to jump into the next email. Again, right now, what we're talking about is, what does it look like for someone to use Tugboat and it to help them come up with ways to communicate with their insurance adjuster? I want to double check real fast. Chris, can you on your phone, actually, I can just do it. Make sure that the live stream is working.
Seems to be on Facebook. Let's see.
I just wanted to double check because it hasn't had as many people bouncing in and out.
It's on Facebook. I'm on Facebook and on Instagram. We just lost our viewership. Yeah.
We lost our what?
Our viewership. That's it.
Oh no. There it is.
Yeah, we're live on both.
Okay, cool. I just want to. Okay, it says it is live. Okay, perfect. All right. So the next email, Rachel, this is another one. It's another piece of the same one that you helped someone put together. So I'm going to read this one out loud like we did the last one. Again, this is a template of an email, and I filled in some of the information. We send it as a template, right? As a Word document, so someone can edit it. They can change it however they want to. I filled in some of the information here. So it was actually looking like the final email. Hi, Mark. Your letter states that, quote, testing prior to completing the professional cleaning is not necessary, end quote. Given that my wife has asthma and we have a 2-year-old child, we want to ensure our home and our belongings are safe. How can we confirm that all toxins and contaminants have been fully removed without testing? If testing is not covered, what alternative method does State Farm propose or propose for confirming full restoration? Additionally, can you clarify what is meant by, quote, the type of soot and ash will determine the type of cleaning needed, end quote. Thank you for your time and clarification. So, Rachel, what's going on here?
So actually, I know what letter went out. They changed my letter a lot, which is good because it's their letter.
It's their letter.
But I'm trying to get to I want the adjuster to be more clear, and I really want them to, I don't know, let's talk about policy, because what you're owed is what the policy contract is, not whatever shenanigans you're thinking you're going to say. This adjuster used the word warranted about 78 times before, or actually unwarranted. And I'm trying to get to the point where let's really discuss what's warranted. A proper investigation is what your policy owes, and restoring your home to pre-loss condition is what your policy owes. And you can't properly restore it to pre-loss condition if you don't know what you're cleaning. So I really just kind of want him to say that. Mm-hmm. So or say something similar, so I can then say that to them. Remind them gently.
Yep. Yeah, I'll repeat this again. So many of the questions. So much of what Tugboat does is help people ask questions. So many of those questions go unanswered. I expect that all of these questions in this email won't come back with answers. But you ask the questions to lay the groundwork. One, so you can say later if you need to, I've already asked this before, right? I asked it on this date. But two, hopefully they'll give some answers to some of this, or at least they'll say something that helps to keep the conversation moving along. So often what happens in a claim is that it seems to halt. Right. And a homeowner doesn't know what to do because their adjuster has said something that's confusing to them, that seems final. Right. they use words like undisputed, set, like, and the every payment you get is called a settlement, which sounds final. And so, and all the other jargon that is used can kind of stop people in their tracks, and that halts the claim process oftentimes, or halts the negotiation of it. So much of what we're helping people to do with Tugboat is to just keep the conversation moving, because that's how you find progress, right? It doesn't happen quickly always, but you keep asking questions, because even if they don't answer the one that you've just asked, if this adjuster responds, right, and doesn't actually answer all these questions, but responds to this homeowner and says, look, testing just isn't reasonable, right? Well, now you can address what he said there, right? And you can ask, what is reasonable? Like, you can present the next argument, right? Or he might say, look, our guidelines say that we don't have to do testing. And then you can address, can you share your guidelines with me that you're talking about, right? And again, they're not going to share the guidelines with you, but you're opening up the next part of the conversation so you can get it. And again, sometimes there's not some like magical solution that we're working someone towards. It's not like we're playing 4D chess always and being like, oh, if you ask these, suddenly you're going to get to this point in the negotiation and boom, like the hammer's going to drop. You're going to get everything you want. But the point is that the conversation, the negotiation rather, only moves forward if the conversation keeps going, right? And so the way forward is to keep things moving. And so that's the purpose of the questions oftentimes. They don't always get answered. Oftentimes, none of them do. But you keep asking because it's important to establish what you can and try to keep things moving. So, okay, so that's, we had the first one, which was on additional living expenses. That was on testing coverage. Let me look at this one now. So, hi, Mark. Your letter states that State Farm will pay the lesser of cleaning, repair, or replacement. We would like confirmation on the following. What process exists for reevaluating items that remain contaminated after cleaning? If an independent specialist determines that certain items cannot be restored, will State Farm consider replacement? The recommendation from remediation professionals is that porous and soft goods, as well as children's items, should be replaced rather than cleaned. Can you confirm if State Farm will include these items in the estimate for replacement? We appreciate your time and look forward to your response. And so, Rachel, again, this is one that you helped with. Tell us about the thought process here, and just talk through it a little bit.
For this part, it was, I want it in writing. These people have I would say, small contents policy limit, and it's a very real concern for them that the cleaning is going to be insufficient. Number one, because they've written like to clean a lamp per hour. That's what some of these estimates are right now. They're so silly. It's based on the number of lamps in the house, and it's really insufficient. It doesn't include HEPA vacuuming or anything like that. It's just general cleaning. And so the policyholders are very concerned that this is insufficient, and they really want to throw away their soft goods because lead potentially, which they haven't tested for, but is known in the area, and they've got a 2-year-old, and they really just want to replace everything. And I wanted State Farm to say they're not going to test for, there is no way to test for it, because they're not going to pay for the post testing. So I want them to just say pre-loss condition really can't be determined, and say we'll replace it. That's what I want them to say, and I want it in writing.
Yeah, you want as much in writing as possible, right, from your insurance adjuster. And even once things are in writing, sometimes they can walk it back, but especially before then, things get walked back all the time. Danielle, what has the process been like on the still standing fire damaged houses that you're working on for contents? How have adjusters been responding to total loss lists, to testing results? What's been kind of status quo there?
Yeah, so I think we're having similar issues across the board with all claims as far as ALE, testing, and replacement of personal property. Those are like the three major issues. Of course, there's differences in structure cleaning, but that's not as big of a problem, I think, as the other three issues. The testing, especially State Farm, is trying to say they don't know for it, but we know that it should be part of their investigation of the loss. When it comes to replacing soft good items, most adjusters are, or some adjusters, I shouldn't say most, but some adjusters are being reasonable, and they're like, okay, well, we'll replace, mattresses. But then it's like, okay, well, what about clothing or, anything with so if you're going to replace the mattress, why wouldn't you replace the couch if it's, anything with a foam interior? So there's like different items that it's almost like they're trying to throw you a bone and like, okay, well, we'll replace the mattress. Like, we should be good to go, but that's not the end of it, really. And once they agree to replace certain things, then it kind of snowballs into, okay, well, what about this? And what about that? I do think that I actually had a State Farm adjuster say to me, well, this is dry ash. It's not wet ash. And I'm like, okay, well, the test results say that it has lead. So regardless of it being dry or wet or whatever you want to call it, there's lead in it, period. So now what, but those are, it's some of the issues that I'm facing on multiple claims as well, especially, with our State Farm.
You said it was an adjuster that told you it was dry versus wet?
Yeah. Yeah. She was like, well, our photos show that it's dry ash. It's not wet or oily. And I'm like, well, I mean, all smoke damage or all smoke is oily, right? Like it leaves an oily residue. So how do your pictures depict whether or not this ash is dry, wet, oily, whatever you're trying to say here,
I had one tell me they don't cover particles. I wrote a pretty pointed letter a little while ago for someone to use.
They don't cover particles, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm. And so I asked
particulate matter?
Nope, just particles.
Particles.
Cover particles. And I in my template I said, well, can you please tell me what particles are? Like, and where they are in the policy that might say that, because I don't understand. I don't want the particles covered. I want them removed.
Mm-hmm. I even, on one of my claims in particular, an adjuster agreed to just a basic cleaning. And I think we discussed this on a previous office hours where we were reviewing the estimate, and it was for more of like interior cleaning with like a sponge and et cetera. So I've been asking adjusters, like, even though I might know the description from Exactimate and what that item should include, I'm asking the adjusters, give me the description. I want to know what this includes. So then we really have more ammo to go, okay, well, this isn't correct. Like, this isn't even the correct area for that type of line item or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Sorry if I got off topic.
No, that's great. Yeah.
I think another thing, a different claim I'm helping too. They have the adjuster told the people they need to prove that the lead dust wasn't there prior to the loss.
Somebody said that?
Mm-hmm. And so
you just have to prove that the fire wasn't there before the fire started too, right? How do you know that this stuff wasn't? How do you know that the fire hadn't already burned the houses down before the fire came?
Right. So what I did there, it was really great because the samples for the lead that pop positive, all on the floor, and they had lived in the house for 5 years. So in 5 years, lead hadn't been disturbed, and it just so happened to be exactly where the sit was, and the ash car. That's pretty amazing. And I use the word unreasonable because they like to use that word. So I'm going to use it too. That seems unreasonable. I don't know. Does it sound reasonable to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sharp though.
I do feel like being so close to this event, meaning that we're supporting so many people through it. It's nearby for a lot of us that are at Tugboat and Waypoint. We're seeing how off base things can become from a single event, meaning that this one wildfire event, because it's so significant, and this happens with hurricanes in certain areas as well, But as every company that has underwritten this area looks to figure out how are they going to weather this claims event, and they figure out what's their strategy going to be for handling claims, what's going to get to all this different stuff, having this kind of overview of seeing like, oh, wow, I've never seen an adjuster say anything like that before. Oh my gosh, yeah, I've never had a response like this to a basic request, right? They're using phrases I've never heard before. I think this is fairly indicative of what happens after a large weather event, right? Is that, I mean, Chris and I got our start in Houston, and we weren't handed a policy to read to be like, hey, get familiar with this. This is what you're going to be enforcing as an adjuster. We were handed a couple pages of guidelines that said, hey, get familiar with this. What was that?
Specifically about that storm.
Specifically about that storm, right? Not even like
now that there has to be like everyone's, because they're saying the same words over and over again. It's like watching the news stories from all one
yeah.
Time. Being like, wow, they're saying the same words. It's like they must have a meme channel that they're all like, they only have internal State Farm Instagram.
Yeah.
they're in a feedback loop.
But we know exactly why that was, right? Because, you know, if you and I each did hundreds of claims at that first storm that we did, right? And so in every report that we wrote and every email response that we had for a homeowner that disputed, who knows what it was, that we said that their roof shouldn't be replaced, right? Because whatever it was, I guarantee you, I told homeowners, oh, this type of damage can be repaired. It doesn't need to be replaced. And I probably used some jargon that they told me to put in each of those. I knew nothing about roofs, didn't know what type of shingle I was talking about. But again, you see that, and I didn't know what I was participating in or doing even at that time, but I was given a set of instructions on, hey, here's how to manage this process. And for those of us that have done claims for a long time, we oftentimes will feel like, oh, we've kind of seen it all. We know the basic arguments. Danielle, as a public adjuster, like one claim can feel really similar to the next one outside of a storm. Because again, like we've all done it before, but it's like this wildfire creates this evolution of claims processing really quickly. It's like, oh, we're just going to change how we do dozens of different things. And for the advocates, the public adjusters, the homeowners, anyone having to navigate it, it can be really disconcerting. I even know for the people that Waypoint has represented and the clients that I've talked to, I've had to let some of them know and just be like, look, this is not common, right? This isn't the type of response that we would expect from this. And so I can't tell you exactly what I expect to happen next. We're going to respond to it. We're going to try and get things back on course in this way, but this is really uncommon, right? And so it's even disconcerting then for your clients as a public adjuster to be like, oh, wait, do you not know what's going on? It's like, no, when the insurance company throws something new at us, of course, like we're professionals, we know how to handle new information, we know what to do with it, but it's not like we have this experience because again, they're using words like particles or determining that there's these new standards that exist that never existed before, right? And that can be a big challenge as an advocate for sure. We have about 10 more minutes left. Let me go back to where we are all full screen right now. Chris, you're fairly well plugged into the ones that were, I know you don't like when I surprise you with questions, but I just thought of this one. So you're pretty well plugged into the claims that Waypoint is supporting in Camarillo, right? And I've checked in on this a couple different times, but for the still standing smoke affected claims that are there, are people moved back in yet? Are some insurance companies, I know debris removal isn't finished yet there, but it's getting close in Camarillo. So what are those claims essentially looking like now? What items are still in dispute? Is it the same things? What's kind of the average status or any outstanders that we should be thinking about?
Outstanders?
Outstanders, outliers,
They're out there standing,
outstanding,
just looking at you, standing there, standing. Those
outstanders. It's a new word. It's in my guidelines from this week for the storm.
I was just gonna say that.
If you didn't get the updated guidelines, that's on you. Okay.
I mean, we out of all the claims we've had out there, I think only one of them is moved back into the house, and there's the other ones that haven't moved back into the house. It's because the main point of damage that we've seen on every single house so far, which everyone can, I guess, can expect to start seeing this and fighting it, is that the cleaning crew damages the paint. So that's the first thing. So cleaning's been done, and they're like, okay, let's get back on the house. And then you say, wait a second, we need to paint the house right now because there's streaks all over the house from the paint. And they're like, oh, that couldn't have happened from cleaning it. So that argument is still going on multiple claims that we have right now. One of them,
real fast, pause on that argument real fast, if you don't mind, because I think for the average person, they might think like, well, yeah, you're like, people clean their walls all the time. Why would they be streaked because they got cleaned this time? What's different about how the walls are getting cleaned?
They're cleaning them with chemical products that not every wall is clean. When you're cleaning your house, you pick like 7th generation, and you get your granola and your incense out, and you do the whole thing. When your cleaning crew is coming through, they're just doing whatever commercial like Whammo product that they have, and they're using whatever chemical products, and most paints can't handle it. And
not only that, they're also doing a much heavier cleaning than just your cleaning person wiping down your walls, because they have.
It says in the clean, like, and so when they're saying, oh, they're just using normal cleaning products, it says if they're using the right line item in Xactimate, it says in there that they're using a wet chemical sponge. And so a wet chemical sponge will damage pretty much any wall. I mean, it just leaves streak marks. It's not what it's meant to be.
And
so
also, the HEPA vac, it slides.
The vacuum itself too. It's got like a spongy thing on the outside of it. It slides down the walls. It streaks the walls. It like rubs in as it's.
So this is my point though. So because I think that it's easy for someone that doesn't understand to be like, well, yeah, you guys are being unreasonable. You're asking for walls to be cleaned after they've been sponged off a little bit, right? But it's not that, right? So to put it simply, the cleaning of the walls that we're talking about is a very heavy cleaning that has to be done that way to decontaminate it properly. And it's expected after you do that to walls that you would have to paint them. But anyways, Chris, continue, because people are coming back in, their walls are damaged at this point.
Yeah, coming back, the walls are damaged. So that's a big holdup right there. They're coming back, and the HVAC is damaged, and they're needing to replace the whole HVAC. And that's a whole nother thing too, because you want to replace the ducts and everything before all the cleaning's done, so that it doesn't. When you're walking around upstairs, it shakes more dust down. It's like this whole sequence of events that needs to happen. So that's another thing, is that there's areas that are damaged that require a technician that's an expert in that area, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, whatever it is, to come in and do that. And then the carrier's sending out like a hygienist instead of that technician. And so now we're stuck fighting an argument. And so, yes, you had, the question was, we're in Camarillo, where are we seeing people back in their homes yet? The people that we saw back in their homes yet were the ones that the insurance company convinced that they didn't even need to clean their house. And those people have been back the whole time. And, but other, like the people that have actually had real cleaning going on and actually fought the battle for themselves have ended up, $300,000 or $400,000 deep within the battle, and still out of their houses for the most part.
Yeah. I think it shows how serious the still standing smoke affected houses can be. Looking at the numbers on some of those that are still in dispute, right, where there's still a lot of money on the table. Some of those claims, there has been $300,000 plus paid across the various coverage. That is a very significant claim in almost every state. So someone just dropped a question in Instagram. Oh, it's from Copilot. Nice to see you guys. Thanks for dropping in here.
So what is the success rate for fighting that argument to get the specialist out to review the equipment? I mean, you're obligated to get your specialist. It's not fighting to get them to allow you to specialist. Like for most people, I would recommend, like, that's what's required. If they bring somebody out, if you want to fight it, you got to bring someone of equal or greater statute or licensing or whatever to fight it. So getting them to agree to it up front, that's not going to happen very often. But going ahead and paying the money yourself and then trusting that it's going to provide new evidence that they have to then take into consideration. If they take that evidence into consideration, that's part of them investigating the claim, and they are technically now on the hook for it. So the success rate for coming out and asking for it is different than the result of it.
Yeah, every piece seems like its own negotiation. I don't think it's funny because it always is interesting to run the data and see what is working and what isn't and how successful things are being. But again, the questions that you ask, the approval that you ask for is as much to establish that you asked for it as it is to actually receive that thing in that moment, right? Because if there's this future dispute, so let's just walk this one down. Let's say that the dispute had to do with the HVAC system, right? And the adjuster said, clean the HVAC system. And they put that line item in there. And you ask them, how am I supposed to clean the internal components of my forced air heater? And how do I make sure that if a HEPA sandwich is supposed to happen, how does that happen within the ducts of my house? All these different things. Like you can ask them that. And then if they say, well, we'll just have a hygienist come out, right, and test it. And you say, no, we already agree that the thing is contaminated, right? Whether it's with lead or asbestos or combustion byproduct, whatever it might be, we know it got on it. So this is the question that we're building up to. It's like, can we just have a technician, like an HVAC licensed technician, come out and say whether or not they can accomplish the thing that you're saying needs to happen, which is clean it, right? And if the adjuster at that point says, no, we're not going to pay for it, you have a couple of options then. You can pay for it yourself and get that report and hope that it gets covered later in your claim. But say that he says no, and you say, fine, I guess this isn't getting paid for. I'm not going to do it. Right. So you move back in your house, and whenever you go by the heater closet in your hallway, it still smells. When you turn on the heater and things start shaking, you can tell that it smells then. And eventually, after the claim's been closed a little bit, you call a technician out and they're like, this thing smells really bad still. Like I had someone come out and try to clean it. They did what they could and it still smells. And that technician then says, well, this thing was never cleanable. Right? Like, of course they tried to clean it, but all the components, like I can't get to them. I can't take this thing apart and clean all the components, and I can't get to these areas. And then that technician puts a report together that you send to your adjuster, and you say, I need this system replaced according to this licensed HVAC technician that just came here. And if the adjuster at that point says, well, we already paid to clean it, like I'm going to subtract that from the replacement cost if this needs to happen. Now you get to go back to this email chain that you had, right? And you get to say, I asked you to send somebody out on this date. Here's the email. I am not like, I should not have to carry any additional costs because I tried to address this before. Here's the evidence of it. And that's where there's a really high level of success. If you can cover your bases when like a dispute is close to resolution and you're figuring out how the costs are going to play out and things like that. If you have covered your bases really well, there is a high level of success in those instances when it matters the most, right? When it comes to actually paying for those things. Would you guys agree as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, all right, we are at 4:00. Thank you guys for joining again. I appreciate you guys taking the time each week to do this. If anybody has additional questions, they can always send us messages. I haven't said this once, but if you have a wildfire claim, Tugboat is free for anyone that was affected by the wildfires. We haven't set up a page yet for those affected by the recent storm in the south, but we'll probably do the same thing for that as well, right? We're trying to assess and see what the claims landscape is from that. But for now, if you were affected by those storms, just send us a message. If you are interested in getting a free account, we'll work with you. But if you're affected by the wildfires and are still navigating your claims dispute, trying to get through these issues, trying to figure out what should be total loss and what shouldn't, and when should you have to move back into your house. This is exactly what we're helping you to navigate on your own, and it's completely free. Tugboat.claims/wildfire. You'll get some amazing support from people like Rachel and Danielle. Chris, thank you for the work you're doing at Waypoint and for joining us again. And we will check back in with everybody next week. All right.